My sister told me I would die alone on my wedding day. She said it quietly, leaning close while I was adjusting my veil in the bridal suite, her champagne breath warm against my ear. Our mother was in the bathroom. The photographer was setting up in the corner. And my sister Vanessa, my maid of honor, whispered those words like she was sharing a secret. "He's settling for you, you know. A man like Ryan could do better. You'll see. Give it 2 years. 3 at most. Then you'll die alone, like you were always meant to." She pulled back, smiled for the photographer who had turned around, and smoothed my veil like she hadn't just gutted me 30 minutes before I walked down the aisle. That was 6 years ago. Last Tuesday, Vanessa called me from her lawyer's office parking lot, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Divorce number 2 was almost final. Jake had cleaned out their joint account and moved to Florida with his coworker. She had nothing. No savings, no apartment in her name, no plan. She wanted advice. She wanted to know how I'd made my marriage work when she couldn't keep one together for more than 2 years. I sat in my kitchen, looking at the photos on my refrigerator. Ryan and me at our 5th anniversary trip. Our new house closing day. The pregnancy announcement we just sent to family last week. 6 years of a life she said would never happen. "Vanessa," I said, "I don't give marriage advice, but I can give you my divorce lawyer's number. She's excellent. Helped 2 of my friends get fair settlements." There was silence on the other end. Then a sound like she'd been slapped. "That's it? That's all you have for me?" "That's all I have for you," I said. And I hung up. Let me take you back, because this story isn't about divorce lawyers or failed marriages. It's about growing up as the invisible sister while watching the beautiful one break hearts and collect proposals. If you've ever been told your worth was less because you weren't the pretty one, you already know this isn't just my story. Vanessa was 3 years older than me and had been beautiful from birth. That's not an exaggeration. I've seen the photos. Even as a baby, she had these perfect features: big green eyes, full lips, thick dark hair that fell in natural waves. People would stop my mother in grocery stores to comment on her gorgeous daughter. Singular. Daughter. Like I wasn't right there in the cart next to her. I was different. Strawberry blonde hair that frizzed in humidity, pale skin that burned instead of tanned, freckles everywhere, a gap between my front teeth until braces fixed it at 13. I look like our father's side of the family, Irish and awkward. Vanessa looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Growing up, our roles were established early. Vanessa was the princess. I was the practical one. Vanessa got dance lessons, beauty pageant entries, headshots for a modeling portfolio she'd never use. I got hand-me-downs, library cards, and the understanding that my value would come from being useful, not ornamental. Our mother made this explicit in 1,000 small ways. When Vanessa complained about chores, Mom would say she shouldn't ruin her hands. When I complained, Mom would say I needed to learn responsibility. When Vanessa wanted expensive clothes, Mom found the budget. When I wanted art supplies, Mom pointed me to the dollar store. "Vanessa needs to look her best," she'd explain. "You're the creative one. You don't need all that." By middle school, the pattern was concrete. Vanessa was homecoming court, then prom queen, then the girl every boy wanted to date. I was honor roll, art club, the girl who helped with projects. Vanessa would come home with roses and teddy bears from admirers. I would come home with good grades nobody asked about. Our father worked long hours, and when he was home, he deferred to our mother on anything daughter-related. "Your mom knows about girl stuff," he'd say, and disappear into the garage. So I grew up with a mother who saw one daughter as a jewel to be displayed, and another as a tool to be maintained. High school was when Vanessa started saying things out loud that she'd only implied before. We were getting ready for her senior prom. I was a freshman, dateless as always, helping her with her makeup because I'd learned to be useful. She was looking at herself in the mirror, this vision in a silver dress that had cost more than my entire wardrobe, and she said it casually, like commenting on the weather. "You know, Megan, you should really focus on school, get a good job. Because, let's be honest, you're not going to have a husband to support you." She laughed a little, not cruelly, just matter-of-factly, like she was stating an obvious truth. Some girls are meant to be loved. Some girls are meant to work. You're a worker bee. That's not bad. It's just who you are. I kept blending her eyeshadow. Didn't say anything. But something inside me filed that moment away. Added it to the collection. She got engaged at 21 to her college boyfriend. The whole family was thrilled. Our mother cried tears of joy, started planning immediately. I was 18, heading to state college on a partial scholarship I'd earned myself. Nobody cried about that. The engagement party was lavish. The bridal shower was elaborate. The wedding was a production that cost our parents $25,000 they didn't really have. I was a bridesmaid, not maid of honor, that went to Vanessa's sorority sister. I stood in an ugly coral dress and watched my sister marry a man named Brett, who had cheated on her twice during their engagement, which I knew because I'd accidentally seen the texts on his phone at the rehearsal dinner. I didn't say anything. She wouldn't have believed me anyway. She was the beautiful one. She knew better about love. The marriage lasted 14 months. Brett left her for a girl from his gym. Vanessa was devastated. Moved back home at 23. Our mother consoled her for months, told her she was too good for him, that someone better would come along. I was at college, working 2 jobs to cover my expenses, calling home once a week to hear updates about Vanessa's broken heart. Nobody asked about my classes, my internship, my life. I was fine. I was the worker bee. Worker bees didn't need attention. I met Ryan during my senior year of college. He was in my marketing study group, a guy with messy brown hair and kind eyes who actually listened when I talked. He wasn't flashy, wasn't the most handsome man in the room, but he remembered things I'd mentioned weeks before, asked questions about my opinions, laughed at my jokes even when they weren't funny. When he asked me to coffee, I almost said no. Almost told him he must have meant to ask someone else. But I said yes, and that first coffee turned into dinner, which turned into a relationship, which turned into the steadiest thing I'd ever known. Vanessa met husband number 2 the same year I met Ryan. Jake, a pharmaceutical sales rep with a leased BMW and expensive watch. He proposed after 5 months. She said yes immediately. "When you know," she told me over the phone. I didn't point out that she'd known with Brett too. I told my family about Ryan at Christmas my senior year. Brought him home to meet everyone. Our mother looked him up and down and gave a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "He seems nice," she said later when he was in the other room. "Very practical choice for you." Practical, like he was a reliable appliance. Vanessa was there with Jake, who spent the whole dinner talking about his sales bonuses and company car. When they left, our mother hugged Vanessa for a long time. "He's so successful," she whispered. She gave me a pat on the shoulder. "Ryan seems stable," she offered. Stable. Like he was a piece of furniture. Ryan proposed on my 22nd birthday. We'd been together a year and a half. He did it at the coffee shop where we'd had our first date. Got down on one knee with a ring he'd saved for months to buy. It wasn't a flashy proposal. No flash mobs or skywriting. Just him, telling me he wanted to build a life with me. I said yes before he finished the question. Called my mother that night to share the news. She was happy for me, in her way. "That's wonderful, honey. Have you thought about the date? Make sure it doesn't conflict with Vanessa and Jake's housewarming." Their housewarming? Of course. I said we'd figure it out. We planned a small wedding, 40 guests, ceremony at a local botanical garden, budget reception at a restaurant nearby. Our total cost was $6,000, most of which we'd saved ourselves. My parents contributed $1,500, with apologies that it wasn't more. Things are tight, my mother explained. We helped Vanessa and Jake with their down payment. You understand. I said I understood. Didn't mention that Vanessa drove a Mercedes while I drove a 12-year-old Toyota. Worker bees don't complain. They just work. Vanessa agreed to be my maid of honor. I was surprised she said yes. We weren't close. Hadn't been since childhood. But she seemed excited. Wanted to throw me a bachelorette party. Help me pick out my dress. For a few months, I let myself believe she was happy for me. Then came the wedding day. That morning in the bridal suite, her champagne breath and her whispered prediction. He's settling for you. You'll die alone like you were always meant to. I almost didn't walk down the aisle. Not because I believed her, but because she'd said it on my one day, my single moment in the spotlight after a lifetime in hers. I stood staring at myself in the mirror. This 22-year-old woman in a sail dress with strawberry blonde hair and freckles, and something inside me didn't break. It solidified. I would marry Ryan, and I would build a life so full of love that her words would become nothing but bitter noise. I walked down the aisle with my chin up, married the man who saw me when nobody else did, danced our first dance to a song we'd chosen together. And when Vanessa gave her maid of honor speech, all generic platitudes and practiced smiles, I looked at her and felt nothing but calm understanding of who she was. A woman who needed to diminish others to feel tall. A woman whose beauty had become her only currency. I felt sorry for her, actually. Watching her toast a marriage she'd predicted would fail, I felt genuinely sorry for the life she was building. Vanessa and Jake's marriage lasted 2 years. He'd been cheating for most of it. Same pattern as Brett. She found out when the other woman called her, pregnant. Jake moved out. Vanessa called me crying, wanted to talk for hours about how unfair it was, how she didn't deserve this. I listened, made sympathetic noises, but I was also making dinner for Ryan, who was working late on a project, who had texted 3 times to check in, who would come home tired and still ask about my day. All men were not trash. She just kept choosing the shiny ones who couldn't see past their own reflections. The years that followed showed exactly who we'd each become. Vanessa dated constantly, always men who looked impressive on Instagram, but revealed themselves as hollow within months. I built a life with Ryan. We moved from our tiny apartment to a small house. Both got promoted at our jobs. Started saving for a bigger place. Ryan and I fought sometimes, sure. Had hard months, disagreed about money, about timing for kids, about the ordinary things couples navigate. But we also laughed every day, supported each other through his father's health scare, through my anxiety about my career, through all the small crises that test a marriage. When I was sick, he brought me soup. When he was stressed, I rubbed his shoulders. We weren't a fairy tale. We were a partnership, and that turned out to be worth more than any fairy tale. Vanessa got engaged again when I was 26. His name was Derek, a real estate agent she'd met on a dating app. They'd been together 4 months. Our mother was thrilled. Maybe 3rd time's the charm, she said. I went to the engagement party, smiled, said congratulations, went home to Ryan and our life, and didn't think about it much. 4 months later, the engagement was off. Derek had been seeing someone else the whole time. Vanessa was devastated but not surprised anymore, just tired. She moved back home again at 29, started therapy finally, seemed to be doing better. I hoped she was learning something. Then Vanessa's lawyer said she could go back to court, fight for her share. But Jake had already moved to Florida with his pregnant girlfriend, now wife. The legal battle would cost more than Vanessa had. She called me that Tuesday from the parking lot, crying about everything she'd lost. "I need advice," she said through tears. "You and Ryan have been together for years. You're happy. I can see it. How do you make it work?" "What's the secret?" I let the question sit. Thought about all the possible answers. The real answer was complicated. It involved choosing someone for their character instead of their charisma. It involved showing up on the hard days. It involved compromising and communicating and choosing the relationship over being right. But I didn't say any of that. Because Vanessa wasn't asking how to build a marriage. She was asking how to acquire one, like it was something you caught rather than grew. "Vanessa," I said, "I don't give marriage advice." She made a frustrated sound. "Why not? You've been married 6 years. You're pregnant. You obviously know something." "I know what works for me and Ryan. We're different people." "That's not helpful," she snapped, still entitled even now, still expecting me to serve her needs. "You're right," I said. "I'm not helpful for this. But I can give you my divorce lawyer's number, Catherine Sullivan. She's excellent. Helped 2 of my friends through their divorces. You should call her about the hidden assets thing." Silence. Then that sound, like she'd been slapped. "That's it? A lawyer's number? I'm asking my sister for advice on how to find love, and you give me a divorce lawyer?" "I'm giving you practical help for your actual situation," I said. "You're not asking how to find love. You're asking how I got what you thought you deserved. And I don't have an answer for that except this. Maybe stop choosing men for how they look on paper and start choosing them for how they treat you when nobody's watching." "You don't understand," she said. "You got lucky. Ryan just happened to be a good guy." "Ryan didn't happen to me," I said. "I chose him. I chose the guy who remembered my coffee order over the guy with the expensive car. I chose the guy who asked about my day over the guy who talked about himself. I chose boring and kind over exciting and empty. Every time. For 6 years. That's not luck. That's judgment." "So you're saying this is my fault?" Her voice rising. "I'm saying you've spent your whole life believing you deserved the best because you were beautiful, and you got men who wanted you for the same reason. Surface attraction. No foundation. Meanwhile, I was the worker bee, remember? The one who'd never have a husband to support her? Turns out being a worker bee meant I knew how to build something. You just knew how to attract it." She was crying harder now. "You're being cruel." "I'm being honest. You told me I'd die alone on my wedding day." "My wedding day, Vanessa. 30 minutes before I walked down the aisle. You looked me in the eye and said Ryan was settling for me, that I'd be alone within 3 years. It's been 6 years. I'm still married, still happy, pregnant with my first child. And you're calling me from a parking lot asking how I did it." "I was jealous," she said. "I was in a bad place with Jake and I lashed out." "You meant it," I said. "You meant every word. You'd been saying versions of it my whole life. Worker bee. Not meant to be loved. Some girls get husbands, some girls get jobs." You believed it. Our mother believed it. Everyone believed it except Ryan and me. "So no, I don't have marriage advice for you. I have a lawyer's number. Take it or leave it." She hung up on me. I expected that. Made myself a cup of tea, sat in my kitchen, put my hand on my belly where our baby was growing. Looked around at my life. The house we'd bought last year. The photos of Ryan and me traveling, laughing, being ordinary and happy. His coffee mug in the sink from this morning. The accumulated evidence of 6 years of showing up for each other. I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. and a little sad for a sister who'd spent her whole life betting on her face and was learning that beauty was a depreciating asset. Our mother called that night. "Vanessa is very upset. She said you were cold and unhelpful." She added that I'd brought up something from my wedding day. "She told me I would die alone," I said, 30 minutes before I walked down the aisle. I'm sure she didn't mean it that way. Of course. Even now, our mother couldn't see her clearly. "Mom," I said, "I'm not going to pretend Vanessa has been good to me. She spent my whole life telling me I wasn't enough because I wasn't as pretty. I have a husband who loves me, a baby on the way, a life I built myself. I'm not diminishing any of that to make Vanessa feel better about destroying hers." My mother said I was being harsh. Family should support family. I said Vanessa had been tearing me down my whole life, said goodnight, hung up, made dinner for Ryan. He asked about my day. I told him about the call. He pulled me close. "You okay?" I looked at him. This man who had chosen me when I didn't know I was worth choosing. "I'm okay," I said. "I'm really probably never will be, but we're cordial at family events." She asked about my pregnancy last time. Seemed genuine. Said she was taking a break from dating, focusing on herself. I hope that's true. I'm 28 now. Married 6 years. Due in April with our first baby, a girl. Ryan and I still live in the house we bought together. Still laugh every day. Still choose each other over and over. My strawberry blonde hair still frizzes in humidity. I still have freckles. I'm still not the pretty sister, but I'm the happy one. And it turns out that matters more. I still have the photo from my wedding day, the one the photographer took right after Vanessa whispered in my ear. We're both smiling. We look like loving sisters sharing a sweet moment. Nobody would guess what had just been said. I keep that photo in a drawer, not framed, just tucked away. A reminder that surfaces lie, that the pretty picture isn't always the true one, and that the best revenge isn't anger or confrontation. The best revenge is proving them wrong so quietly that when they finally notice, all they can do is ask for advice. And you get to decide whether they deserve an answer or just a lawyer's number. If you've ever been the overlooked sibling who built something real, this is for you. If you've ever been told you weren't enough while watching the one who had everything destroy it, this is for you. If you've ever given someone a phone number instead of the satisfaction of your hard-won wisdom, this is for you. You don't owe your secrets to people who predicted your failure. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is hand someone a professional referral and let them figure out the rest themselves. Tell me in the comments, has a family member ever predicted you would fail at something you succeeded at? Did they ever acknowledge they were wrong? I read every story. Subscribe for more stories about people who proved the doubters wrong. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's 6 years of quiet happiness that speaks louder than any words.